All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our SPAC meeting tonight. I have 6:01 and am calling the meeting to order. Again, thank you for attending. Tiffany, would you take roll call, please?
Of course. Joe Pishneri. Brittany D'Alaconte.
Here.
Barry Lind.
Here.
Our newest member, Cynthia Koza.
Here.
Jonathan Hayes. Carla Berg. Terry Dillon.
Here.
Adam Jenkins.
Here.
Brett Yancey. And Eric Adams is excused, and Michael Bean is joining us tonight.
Let's begin by well, Tiffany, did you say we would give a moment for Cynthia to introduce herself?
Yes, I think that would be a great idea.
Thank you.
Well, I go by Cindy, and thank you for having me here. I'm excited. I have a social work background. I did that for about 8 or 9 years, and then I started my own social service agency. It's called Rise and Shine. It's here in Springfield, and I started that business about 5 years ago. And so I have this kind of unique background of having homeless outreach, providing social services, and then also running a business and doing community outreach and things like that. So I hope to be a value add and bring some insight.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. We're honored to have you join us and be a part of the team. Thank you. All right, we've got the minutes that you've had a chance, hopefully, to glance through. I needed to know if there were any corrections or anything that needs to be adjusted. If not, would someone make a motion to approve the minutes from our
I'll
last?
make a motion to approve the minutes as they stand.
Thank you, Terry. Do I have a second?
I can second that motion.
Thank you. First and second, all in favor of approving minutes from our October 6th meeting, would you just raise your hand? I think that'll work. Perfect. Minutes are approved. And then we will move on from that, from business from the audience. So,
Barry,
yes,
at this time, we have no attendees, so we can skip that.
that makes it simple. Let me ask this question that Terry did ask. Where's the city on meeting in person?
Okay, I asked about that, I think after our last meeting, and they're still waiting for direction from council. Yes, even though council is meeting in person now, they have to make it uniform for all of the other boards and committees. And they have to be able to meet in person and have a way to offer it virtually. And while we have that capability here at the police department with our meeting room and being able to do Zoom, I'm not sure that all the other boards do. So they want it to do it all at the same time. So we're still waiting for council to say, go for it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, then we can move right on to that, to business from the Springfield Police Department. Chief.
All right, good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all again. I want to welcome Cindy as a new member. Thank you so much. It's awesome to work in a community that has people like yourselves that are willing to step up and help advise and counsel and provide that to us, and so to be a part of this group. It means a lot to us. So thanks for stepping into this. Michael Bean, I really appreciate you being here tonight. Your contributions over the last 2 terms have been tremendous, even though I've only been here a short time. And if you would allow me to.
8 years.
8 years, yeah, 2 terms, yeah. So if you'd allow me to, I've written a letter of appreciation for you, and I think I'd like to read it to you out loud and have the group hear it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, well, that's fine, yeah.
All right. So I want to recognize and highlight the invaluable contributions you've made as a longtime member of the Springfield Police Advisory Committee. In July 2014, you began your first 4-year term after being appointed to this position by the mayor and city council to represent our local business community. You served 2 consecutive 4-year terms as a committee member, offering counsel to both the chief of police and city elected officials regarding public safety and neighborhood livability issues up through November of 2022. As a local business owner, Springfield community member, and manager of a regional addiction and behavioral therapies program, you provided a range of perspectives that enhance the committee's effectiveness and help strengthen public safety in our community. And during your tenure, you experienced firsthand the changing expectations of law enforcement in terms of how they police the communities that they serve. Throughout your most recent term specifically, you were at the forefront of guiding the Springfield Police Department and this community through a series of difficult challenges. Events occurring both nationally and locally have impacted community trust in policing that affect us right here at home. And as a result, the committee's mission changed quickly, requiring demanding and sometimes difficult work by all of its members. But your commitment to public service on this committee and the difficult work you engage in over the last 8 years have made a lasting impact on how this police department operates today. You should be commended for your actions in support of the work of the men and women of the Springfield Police Department and in improving the level of trust that people of Springfield have in their police department. So thank you very much for your 8 years of service. It's tremendous. And we wouldn't be the agency we are today without your fingerprints all over it. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. You're a writer. I'm going to cry.
I don't want you to cry. And we will be sending you a nice hard copy of this along with a gift as well. So you're going to be expecting that soon.
You have to. My wife's not going to believe me.
It's in the mail.
I also
It's
want
really
to
good
recognize,
to have you.
and I know you already touched on it, but I'm super happy that Terry was reappointed to be with us for quite a while longer. So that's outstanding as well.
Thank you.
I've got probably 5 or 6 things I want to touch on for the update. So the first one is we had a homicide back in October, and there's been some community interest in that, some questions answered or asked. So I just want to kind of fill in the gaps on some of that. It occurred on October 4th, where we got a phone call about 10 p.m. regarding somebody that had been shot. Police responded, and unfortunately, we found somebody that had been shot and was killed from that gunshot wound. I wanted to talk about this case in particular because frankly, I mean, it's a tragedy that this young man lost his life, but to highlight the work that the police and detectives of SPD did in the hours and days immediately following that. So the next day, we already had 1 suspect in custody. They had actually had a gunshot wound and tried to get out of town to go seek treatment in another city. And so we were notified when this person ended up at a hospital in Corvallis, and with some good police work, we were able to connect the dots and realize that this person was involved probably in the homicide down here. Our digital forensics team immediately started taking advantage of the evidence that they had recovered with cell phones and started diving into that. And through that analysis, we were able to identify 2 other suspects that were also involved in this homicide. So this occurred on October 4th. So by October 10th, we had identified these other 2 suspects, reached out to Denver PD, who found them, put them under surveillance, followed them, and were able to make an arrest, and they tried to flee on foot. They arrested them. We immediately had 2 of our detectives on an airplane to fly to Denver, where they went there, interviewed the suspects, and ultimately have closed this case and brought some kind of closure to the family. And that really all occurred within about 5 days of the homicide, which is just, I think it speaks to the team that we have here and the dedication and the capabilities that they have. I mean, the digital forensics are huge. There's a lot of agencies that do not have that in-house. And while it's an expensive proposition, there's a lot of training and equipment that goes with that. It's the kind of thing nowadays that solves cases, because everything from domestic violence to a car theft, I mean, everything is a digital footprint now. And if you don't have the capabilities to pursue that, you're way behind the curve.
It's pretty amazing, just amazing.
Yeah, it was some outstanding police work, and while it was a tragedy, I'm really proud of the people here that they were able to bring that closure to the family.
Was there a shootout or?
It wasn't a shootout. I've actually got Detective Potter here with me to talk about something later, but he was one of the detectives involved in the case. So if you have any questions, I don't want to overshare because it's still pending trial, but he can probably tell you a little bit about some of the details.
Yeah, it was
If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer it.
So it wasn't a shootout, but another guy was shot or?
No, so another guy was shot and it actually was by himself. The guy that was shot didn't do the actual shooting. It was another one of the three males. And this guy, who's a young man getting into the car that they were the getaway car, he went to shove his gun in his pants and shot himself in the leg in the process. So he tried to get out of town, like the chief said, and he ended up getting to Corvallis and needed to pull off and go to the hospital because he was in too much pain. And the Corvallis PD and the hospital up there did a good job asking questions and then basically calling us with the info.
Pretty young guys.
That's a tragedy. I mean, he was known to some of the people that worked here, and you know, some of the, I know there's one person that works here in particular has a son the victim's age, and they knew each other growing up. I mean, he's a local kid. It's just, that's a tragedy, but
He's a good kid. Everybody liked him. Played sports, just graduated high school not too long ago, super in health and fitness, and you know, it's too bad, but you know, we did what we could and you know, brought the family as much closure as we could in that circumstance.
Yeah, it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
any other questions about that we can answer for you?
I just want to say, you know, it was within a block of my house up in the Thurston Hills. And it's like one of the last place you'd think there's going to be a lot of gunplay. So you just don't know anymore because everyone's armed.
Right, and they actually, so you know, they picked that location because it was a nice neighborhood and they didn't think the police would be, this is coming from the suspects talking to them. They didn't think the police would be driving through there, bugging them because it was actually a set up drug deal is how this whole thing started.
Yeah, well, they were wrong.
Right.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, see here, I got a few other things to touch on. I know we talked in the past about the accreditation process that we're under, or not under, we're pursuing. We're mandated to be accredited by, I think it's 2025, based on the size of our agency, but we dove into that several months ago because we want to get it done. It's something we wanted to do anyway, and it just so happened that the state legislature decided to require that for all agencies in the state, which is a good thing. But we pursued a grant because it's a tremendous amount of work to get accredited and to stay accredited. We pursued a federal grant that we won, and I think the dollar amount is roughly $150,000 or $160,000. But we got that grant, and it's basically going to allow us to hire a project manager to support the work with somebody that has expertise in policy review and kind of facilitating the efficient rewrite of all of our policies and the other things go along with accreditation. So that's huge for us because, you know, we're a city that runs pretty lean anyway, and we always try to do more with less. And this is a huge lift. And so to have that extra bit of help to help us get through that accreditation process is we're very fortunate to have got this grant. So I just want to pass that on as well.
Is that for 1 year or 2 years or?
I think it's a 2-year grant, I think.
2 year, because it's expensive. It's real expensive going through accreditation. So
It's a lot of,
congratulations. Yeah.
there's a tremendous amount of personnel hours involved in that. And we're trying to balance what are we not going to do so we can focus on the accreditation.
Yeah.
It's tough, yeah. It's an update on some personnel things. So we have, we did a deputy chief posting. We've gone through different interview panels. We've narrowed the deputy chief selection down to one person. That person is currently in backgrounds right now. So unfortunately, I cannot release who that person is until we get the backgrounds cleaned up. But the goal is to get through the backgrounds here in the next three to 4 weeks. My goal is in the middle of January to have a hiring ceremony where we can hopefully hire a deputy chief. We can promote a sergeant. We just had a sergeant's process. We've got some tremendous candidates out of that. So I want to promote at least one sergeant then as well. We're currently in the process of interviewing our community outreach coordinators. I interviewed final interview of 2 of them today, and I've got another one on Monday. So hopefully we can make our selection out of those 3. And if we get the backgrounds done, we will hire them in the middle of January as well. And then we have, according to Sergeant Massey, who handles our personnel stuff, we have potentially multiple officers that we might be able to hire by middle of January. By multiple, it's probably going to be 2 or 3, something like that. But that's big for us. I mean, it's not, talking about 5 or 6 people total, but that's really big for us to be able to bring on that many people on board, especially in some of those critical roles. So that's something we're really excited about, looking forward to.
That's great.
For Veterans Day, I want to thank Tiffany here because she came up with the idea. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Chet Fund. It's just a tremendous resource we've got. We were trying to think of what we could do on Veterans Day. So we donated $1,000 from the Chet Fund to the local VFW, which they used to provide Thanksgiving meals to veterans, which was an outstanding use of that money. We were able to actually go out and deliver some meals to veterans on Veterans Day as well. We took several of us that went out and went door to door and brought them, nice meals the day before Thanksgiving. So that was fun too. The Christmas parade is a go for Saturday. So I know I will be there, and I know almost everybody in the PD will be there. So hopefully some of you can be there too. Should be a lot of fun. We have made our traditional SPD calendars. I guess we'll set some aside for SPAC in case you're not there, so y'all get one, but we'll be handing out calendars, and I don't know how many thousands of candy canes Tiffany said she got, but we got like a truckload of them. So we'll be throwing those out to everybody as well. So we're looking forward to that. And that is, I think, my SPD update. Oh, one last thing. The levy passed in November. That is huge for us. So I think as we talked about, it's basically a third of our budget. And it was kind of a nail biter. And I feel really good about what happened because it is the largest voter turnout ever since the levy, the first vote in I think 2002. It's the largest voter turnout ever. And the yes votes were, I want to say 65 or 66%, which the highest yes votes ever were like 67%. But oddly enough, that was the year with the lowest turnout, like a fraction of the people that turned out. So not only did we have the highest voter turnout this year, we have basically the highest yes votes ever. So I think that says a lot about what the people of Springfield feel about this police department. And I was really proud to see that vote.
Very good. Very good. Any questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Go ahead. Was someone going to say something? Nope, I'm hearing something, but very good. Thank you, Chief. All right, business from the committee. We have on here an annual report. Tiffany, did you have, we talked earlier and I was just had a question or two. Did you learn anything from what we talked about?
No, I've emailed city manager's office to find out. My understanding is you guys had a joint meeting with city council in February of last year, and maybe a subcommittee drafted the annual report. So to me, annual means yearly. So I'm assuming that you'll have it again this coming February. And since we don't meet between now and February, I wanted to get a jump start on that side. Emailed them to find out if they have a date and what is expected from SPAC. So if anybody wants, I can email the annual report that you did last year just to refresh your memory. I can bring it up on the screen right now.
Yeah, if you would bring that up, that would be great. Who I know that I was not a part of that, but there was a subcommittee that was a part of that. Michael, I have a feeling that you were a part of that, but am I misremembering?
Yeah, your feelings are strong.
But I don't think you were alone either, but it was very extensive. I almost got the feeling that there was a summary report and then there was like just a summary of, you must have gone through the minutes of each meeting, and we met every month at that time because there was such high activity.
Yeah, we went through several rewrites.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was on that subcommittee as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I
Thank you.
think Terry was.
Terry and Brittany. Okay, I knew there was a committee.
Right.
Thank you. So we would need to be thinking about putting that together again, an annual report. I think if I'm remembering correctly, that it's nice to be able to share that with the city council when we have that meeting with them that's not currently scheduled. And so if I'm looking at the one that you turned in, again, there was a summary and then there was just some highlights of each of the meetings. Am I correct in that as well?
Yes, you are. I think, didn't we, Brittany, divide it into, I took like the first third of the year and we divided in, and we started with the minutes and then we tried to condense what happened, give us direction. So
Exactly.
a report by committee.
Does the committee feel like that's a pretty good process for which to come up with an annual report for this last year?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
Terry
that's no
doesn't.
problem.
Brittany, do you have a sense of that as well? I'm wondering then if there would be 2 or 3 people again that would be willing to that would get together and go through a process which works for that group to bring out the highlights. We can provide the minutes from the last year. They're not going to be as much because we at one point went to an every other month meeting instead of every month. I'm wondering if there's some folks on the committee that would be willing to take some responsibility for putting some of those thoughts together for an annual report for the city council, potentially in February or March, maybe.
I'd be happy to be on that committee.
Okay, thank you. And
I would
that was
also
Carla.
go ahead.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
I'll also go ahead.
Okay, Terry and Carla.
Mm.
Anyone else?
Brittany, Brittany.
I can totally, I'll do it again. Yeah, no, that sounds good to me.
Okay,
Okay,
Thanks
Thank
for,
you.
thanks for the encouragement, Mary. Now,
Thank you,
yeah, happy to do it.
thank you so
thank you,
much.
all 3 of you. So Terry, can I have you make a point sometime in the month maybe of January of getting the 3 of you together, and you have contact information with the group?
And I do. I think
You
I
can
still
get
have
it.
it for, I think I have it for Carla too, but I can always get that. But yes,
Okay,
I'll do that.
And I can set up a Zoom meeting with the 3 of them.
okay,
We could,
Perfect.
yeah,
Thanks, Tiffany.
then we can report it
Need
as
your
an
help.
official subcommittee meeting. So,
thank
I
you.
need your help.
Yeah, we want
Thank
it to
you.
be official.
yeah. So, hopefully this one will be smaller because it looks like the one you did was maybe a year and a half worth of
It was
stuff.
18 months. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe it won't be quite as long.
That'd
Yeah,
be good.
I don't-
It'll
I
be
think-
less.
I felt like it had not only been 18 months, but there was an extra amount of things going on, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, and because I feel like too, it was the first time I can remember meeting with the city council, and I've been on for a little bit. So I think we were wanting to be very attention to the details. So, so I think we've got that to work from, but I don't think we'll have as much information to have to process. So thank you, Tiffany, for setting a Zoom meeting, and for the 3 of you that are willing to help take care of that. Brittany.
I do have a quick question. I'm wondering if to help inform our report for this year, I'm wondering if we could, because I think we gave a list of recommendations to council in last year, and I full disclosure, I have not been as good at keeping up with city council meetings as I have been in the past, but I'm not sure if they've provided an update to us in terms of their response to our recommendations since the meeting, and getting something like that, or if there's just a recording from a past city council meeting that addressed it that we could look at before we kind of start working on the next steps, could be really helpful.
That's a great question. And I don't know the answer to that.
Let me share the screen again. Is this what you're referring to, Brittany? It says next steps in discussion.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can certainly ask when they get back to me about the next meeting if the city manager's office knows if that has been discussed with council and if there's any reply to those.
Awesome. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, Brittany.
And I
Thanks,
think
Brittany.
it's a great idea, again, as we get a reply to that, whatever other requests or questions we have of city council on our yearly meeting, to be able to have that in writing for them, I think assists us in being able to partner together in the ways that we want with city council. So thank you, Brittany, for that. Very good. Thank you.
I think the second part of that, the questions for consideration, it says, how does council see boards and commissions role in broader civic engagement? I think we kind of covered that in our last few meetings, going over the goals.
Yes,
Definitely.
yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I'm going to move on then to SPAC goals, and we really made it pretty simple. We worked quite a bit on this and narrowed it down to 2. You should have been sent those, but the 2 goals, I wanted just to come back to that, and thank you, Tiffany, for bringing that up. Any other further comments or questions about those 2 goals? Like I said, we went through quite a process at our last meeting to get to a place that I thought everyone felt pretty good about that. And so those would be our goals that we would have as our direction moving forward. Everyone comfortable with that? And we're set to go moving forward with that as our goals.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any
Do we-
concerns, questions?
Oh, no, sorry.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for that. That was quite a process, actually. So I'm glad we're moving forward in that one. Our scheduled policy review, there's a couple of policies that we're looking at. And if Chief, you would, if you don't mind, just taking us through that just a little, and then we can ask the questions or give any thoughts or inputs that people might have. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through those, and we can get into that. The first one would be the disciplinary procedures. Chief, is there anything you want to address with that, or just have us ask questions or give thoughts?
Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. I've definitely had a chance to look at it. This is another policy that we want to rewrite and clean up. There's some things in here that I would change, and I plan to change, but this is just one that we haven't quite tweaked yet. Fundamentally, I think it's fairly good because it talks about the different levels of discipline. You know, discipline for us is made to not be punitive. It's made to correct deficiencies and behaviors that we don't want. So depending on the level of the infraction, there's what we would call like an oral counseling, or oral reprimand, where you can sit down and talk to somebody, and then that is documented in a memo that I sat down and talked to you about it, and it goes into a working file. From after that, there's basically a written reprimand where there's a memo basically outlining what you did. That goes in your working file. And then as we progress up beyond that, the next level of discipline is unpaid leave. Might give you a day off without pay, or 30 days off without pay, or whatever whatever is most appropriate depending on the policy violation that you committed. And then beyond that monetary discipline, it could come to potentially demotion. I mean, if you were a sergeant or a lieutenant, that's another thing that you could potentially be disciplined. A level of discipline is demotion, and then ultimately the final type of discipline is termination. So we look at discipline like this as progressive. If you get in a minor car accident, I'm not going to give you 30 days off without pay. You need to have an oral reprimand, and then potentially a written reprimand if you do it again. And we progress through the discipline to try to change that behavior and give an opportunity to change the behavior. That doesn't mean if you do something really, really, really bad, or potentially even criminal, that you're just going to get an oral reprimand because it's your first time. That's not how it works. We can balance the discipline against the level of violation, but when possible, we need to work through it in a progressive manner to try to change behavior and provide, teaching opportunities to the members if they continually make mistakes in certain areas, like report riding or driving or lower level things like that. So in a nutshell, those are the different levels of discipline and how we kind of work through that. But I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have specifically about the policy.
Any questions on that policy or input? Brittany.
Yeah, thanks. I'm curious about the role of the Springfield Police Association it was alluded to a few times in the policy, the bargaining agreement that exists between SPD and the union. And I was wondering if is the bargaining agreement something that's publicly available?
Yeah, I think it's posted on the city's website. It
On
might
the
be
city's
on the
website?
police
Okay.
page, but yeah, it's a public document.
Awesome, cool. Okay. And because I was looking at the appeal process for the it's kind of at the end of the policy, I think. And I was wondering how often are disciplinary procedures appealed and overturned? Are there any like stats or numbers on that?
That's a good question. I don't have those stats readily available. I think anything above a written reprimand, so if it's days off without pay, demotion, termination, any of those, I basically would, at the end of the investigation, I would give a letter to the member and the bargaining unit, say, I intend to give you 30 days off. Within the next 7 days, you have the opportunity to come to my office and basically try to change my mind, present your case to me. So you get the opportunity to come in, I can listen to what they have to say, and I can say, thank you very much, you're still getting 30 days off. Or I can say, well, you made a kind of a compelling argument, I'm only gonna give you 15 days off. So that is their opportunity at the end to come in and kind of make their case to me after the investigation is done. Now, if I levy that discipline, it's like, nope, you're getting your 30 days off. I mean, there is a legal process, the arbitration process that they can always go to, to try to get that overturned, and that occurs outside of the department.
Okay.
But that is basically the appeal process. It's inside the department. Is I determine the discipline. They get a chance to come to me and try to change my mind or have me mitigate it down. But once I levy the discipline, it is what it is, unless they decide to take it to an outside arbitrator or something.
Okay. And then that's really interesting. Thank you. That's really helpful. So if there's arbitration, is it like city attorneys that arbitrate it outside of the police department?
The city attorneys would be involved in it.
Okay.
But so we have the city attorneys, and then the represented member would have their attorneys, and then they would decide on an arbitrator, and they would each go make their case in front of the arbitrator, probably with witnesses, and everybody would go, and then the arbitrator would make that final decision.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. That was really insightful.
You bet.
Great questions. Thank you. Any other questions on this policy or thoughts? Let's move then to the second policy review of the hate and bias crime reporting.
In my pursuit of always trying to expose the people in SPD to new opportunities, I brought Detective Potter with me here tonight to talk about that, because he is our lead bias crime detective. So he can kind of answer questions, talk about the policy, and hopefully give you some insights.
So I've been working the bias crime stuff. I work major crimes. Bias crime kind of falls into that. We don't get a whole lot of them, but I'm happy to talk with you guys about it. Basically, there's numerous ways that people can report bias crimes, and that's done because not everybody likes calling the police. There's a lot of factions in our community that don't want any police involvement. So we give them an opportunity like the Springfield webpage. There's hotlines, non-emergency 911 is available to anybody, but numerous ways basically to report bias crimes. And when they are reported, the most important thing we do is handle it with a sensitive and caring fashion, because it is a really sensitive topic. A lot of people are really sensitive and get, treated poorly in general, or their perception is that. And we don't, we want to give them as sensitive and caring handling of the case as we can. So that's basically the first thing we do for people. Also, if a bias crime or bias incident is reported, no matter what the details, we go through it and we work the crime from beginning to end. Collect all the evidence. We do everything. It's assigned to a detective. If detectives are needed, we call them in. It's not like regular crimes. Like if a minor harassment gets reported and it seems like, oh, this is, mutual combat or just arguing or something minor, we might try to triage it and get on to the next case because it's not that big of a deal. Well, we don't treat bias crimes that way. So we basically work them from beginning to end, all the way through. If that means we need detectives, if that means we need digital forensics guys to come in, if we need anything, we work it from beginning to end, all the way through, like we would any major crime. I think the biggest thing with bias crimes is there's bias crime in the first degree and bias crime in the second degree, which in the first degree is a C felony. And it's basically if you cause physical harm to someone because of perceptions you have of that person, whether it's race, gender, sexual orientation, really anything, that would be bias crime 1. Bias crime 2 refers more to vandalism or something like that to somebody, somebody's property or causing someone a major inconvenience. That'd be bias crime 2, and that's a class A misdemeanor. We look at them the same. We work them the same no matter what. Most of the time when we get a bias crime, though, it ends up being what we call as a bias incident. And usually it's a harassment. Somebody calls someone a racial slur or something like that. It doesn't actually meet the level of bias crime. But here in Springfield, we still handle it with the same care. We still work from beginning to end. And it still gets assigned to an officer, if needed, a detective, and the case gets worked all the way through, regardless of if it's an incident or a bias crime. I did pull some stats for you guys if you're interested in hearing them.
Yes.
In 2021, there were 8 reported bias crime incidents or bias crimes, with 3 arrests. Now, I didn't go into each case and see if the arrest was for bias crime or a lesser crime, but we did 3 arrests out of those 8 reported. In 2022, we had 12 reported bias crime or bias incidents with 2 arrests. So it's not super prevalent. We don't get a lot of calls on it, but it does happen. I would say roughly, with those numbers, once a month, we get somebody reporting something regarding bias, bias crime or bias incident.
Give us an example of like just a typical one, if there is such a thing.
So,
type of call it comes.
Sure. I'll just, without giving ton of details, but this last month, I had one where a male is walking, an African-American male is walking through Target, and he bumps into what ended up being a juvenile. He was a big guy, so he didn't look like a juvenile to the male. Bumped into the smaller of the 2. The one that the incident was the bigger guy. But anyways, he bumps into the smaller of the 2 males. I've watched the video. He kind of looks back and he said, I'm sorry. He kind of just slept it off like, hey, sorry, I bumped your shoulder, kept walking. He then hears something behind him, which he thinks is a derogatory name directed toward him. He turns around. They have a face-to-face. They talk about something. Their stories between the suspect and the victim are quite different. But nonetheless, they had an interaction there. There was just words. They both go their own directions. Well, the African-American victim ends up walking around the store with his family for a little bit longer. He comes outside. These 2 guys are circling the parking lot to tell him F you on their way out and he says more derogatory slurs towards him. They drive off at that time. Now, that would be a bias incident because there was nothing to his property to make it a bias crime 2. There was no serious physical injury, no fighting, nothing like that. So it was just, it falls into just harassment, which isn't a bias crime. But nonetheless, the officers take a report. The male had only gotten a partial plate from a license plate from that car. It was assigned to me, and I was able to actually figure out through the help of a female at DMV who's really helpful what the plate was. And I ended up talking with the guy who ended up being 16 years old, suspect. And he denied the derogatory claims. I made sure his parents are aware of, what he was doing. I forwarded it to, I worked it all the way through as much as I could. He didn't admit to it, but I still forwarded it to SERBU, which handles all our juvenile arrests and that. I didn't arrest the kid. I left him with his parents. I have no idea at this point what our juvenile system's going to do with him. It's still pending. So, but that is most of the time, give or take, a typical bias incident that we get. We don't get a lot of actual crimes. I haven't actually worked one. It's been actually one a couple of years ago, which was just vandalism, bias crime 2. But almost every one is usually just a bias incident, usually harassment. And it's usually just verbal.
Carla, you have a question?
I do. Thank you for that information. I was looking at this policy, and it seems to be more in how we respond to those.
Right.
And I know this is kind of off the cuff, but do you happen to have the policy number on how you decide the difference between a bias crime 1 and a bias crime 2?
Yeah, so that's not covered in the policy. That's actually going to be the Oregon revised statute. And I do have the number sitting with me here. Bias crime in the first degree is 166.165. And bias crime in the second degree is going to be 166.155.
Perfect, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Just out of curiosity, do you have any examples of like the vandalism bias crime? Like what would constitute that?
So a couple years back, the one that I was talking about, and we didn't actually catch who did it, but it was just graffiti on a fence, and it was swastikas, and that they put on the fence, and the person that was the victim was Jewish, and so it's super concerning to them, obviously, but unfortunately we weren't able. We worked video and different, but we weren't able to track down who did it. We had some people that they suspected as neighbors. No one obviously wanted to admit to it, and it ended there. No more complaints, but that would be typically when somebody's doing, typically it's spray paint. Could be on a certain holiday, it could be on a certain, day, or, who knows what, but typically vandalism to someone's property in the form of, graffiti a lot of times.
This may seem like a silly question. Does it matter where the graffiti happens? In other words, so that sound like this one happened at someone's home or maybe their fence. What if it's, there is just all kinds of fences along the pathway behind Page Elementary, and we see graffiti there all the time.
Or behind Bi-Mart, our Thurston Bi-Mart this summer had swastikas and stars of David, and Bi-Mart was pretty good about covering it up before the next day. But
that's a good question. At somebody's house, there's an actual victim. When it's done to something like in public, like a Bi-Mart or something, it's got to be directed towards someone for that reason, to actually, to be a victim of a crime and the person who did it be a suspect. So it kind of just depends circumstantially how that's handled, something like that.
so if it's in a public space or city property, there's no victim.
Well, there'd be a victim of vandalism, but maybe not bias crime. Maybe too. I mean, if it was directed towards somebody in particular for, whatever their perceived race or gender is.
It's a legislative issue.
Right.
One of my hobbies.
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing with us tonight. I really am grateful for the work you're doing. Such important work. Any other thoughts, comments, questions from the community? Very good. Thank you again. All right, we are on the home stretch. You want to take a chance for members to just share information, what's going on. If they're aware of anything that they want to pass on, this is an opportunity to share different things. Yes, Adam.
So I just want to say thanks to the SPD. My kids go to Thurston Elementary. We have issues with people parking on the Thurston Road there, which can get a little sketchy with cars driving kind of fast, not seeing kids coming out of the school. SPD came out a few different times with their bike cops, and I don't know if they gave it any tickets, but told people not to park there. So it's just been an ongoing issue, and safety there is a big concern because people are going 55 miles an hour around that corner right by the elementary school. And, there's a lot of little kids walking on the bike paths and on the sidewalk there. And as some of you remember, there was a incident there where kids were going too fast around the corner and hit someone's fence and caused some issues. Luckily, it wasn't during the kids getting out. But I just want to say thanks to the SPD for getting out there and trying to help out a little bit with that.
Well, thanks, Adam. I appreciate that. And just for everybody, like always, when there's a problem like that you see, please call and let us know, because we absolutely want to respond and send the motor cops out there to do a detail or whatever, but we need the community to tell us about it. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else have something that they would want to just pass on, concern or just appreciation? Anything they're aware of? Yes, Michael, and then. we'll go to
I
Terry.
just want to give my appreciation to everybody here. It's going to be a void in my life. But
We're gonna miss you.
It's been a privilege. I'm going to miss you guys. It was always uplifting once a month. So.
You did such
Thank you.
great work, Michael. Thank you. Appreciate you very much. Terry,
Yeah, I wanted to say thanks to Michael too, and Mary, thanks to you. We'll miss you as well.
well, you're chairing. I'll still be on the team.
Yeah, but I'll miss your chairing.
Thank you. I know you're going to do a great job, so I'm grateful for that. But thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else that from just what's going on that anyone wants to share? I just didn't want to miss anyone. Very good. I really appreciate everyone's time tonight. And grateful for your serving in such an important way. And I think it is important. And we will not be meeting in January. So our first Thursday in February will be our next meeting. Terry will be chairing that. And so grateful, Terry, for you stepping into that role. And just appreciate everyone, wishing you all a Merry Christmas and thank you for your time tonight. We're going to conclude our meeting at 6:47 and have a great evening.
Thanks. Take care.
Have a good night,
Have a
everybody.
wonderful holiday.
Thank you, everyone.